I was at an event the other night, Monday night as I record this, talking about no farmers, no food. Hence the sign which I managed to purloin there so that I could remind people watching the channel what's going on in the farming industry. Anyway, I had a lovely talk with the bowler-hatted farmer, Mark Byford, and a very receptive audience. And afterwards, you know what it's like, if you've ever been to any of these events, people like to come up and talk to the speakers, and many of them did. They came up to Mark and myself and the lovely Julia who was there. And a few of them said, "Oh, Richard, we love your channel. We get all our news from you," which was a bit baffling, really, because I don't really do the news or current affairs. I don't have a television. I don't watch what's going on in the world. I don't listen to the mainstream narrative. And so I find sometimes when people say that a bit strange. And I'm aware that this mainstream narrative, this news, is there to distract us, to take us away from what's really going on and what's really important to us in our lives. While we were at the event, or just before I should say, we nipped in for a cheeky bag of chips from a recommended chippy in Needham Market where we were. And when we came into there, and it's rare that we go for chips these days because, you know, mostly chips are cooked in some very dubious stuff, although these chips were apparently cooked in beef dripping, which was rather nice and tasty. Anyway, the point was we went in there and there was a newspaper in the waiting area, and I hadn't seen a newspaper or looked at a newspaper for a long time, and it was The Sun. Now, of course, you know, I'm not going to say anything derogatory about such a very reputable newspaper, of course, but I did open it up and I was quite amazed that the amount of stuff in the newspaper that was talking about television characters, these soaps about who's having an affair with so-and-so and who's walked out on somebody else. And I thought, this is really bizarre, isn't it? People are buying a newspaper, reading about fictional characters, or even stuff perhaps to do with what supposedly is going on inside the cabinet at the moment with the new Labour government. And I thought, blimey, this is all news to me because I don't read newspapers, and as I said, I don't have a television. And the thing about all of this is it made me very much aware of how many distractions are out there, keeping us away from those important things. Somebody had sent me a few of the shooting of Donald Trump and all the allegations now about, oh, it was a setup and it wasn't just one shooter, there was another shooter, and there's all these sort of things, and we're all going now, oh, we must analyse this because we've got to get to the bottom of it. And yet again, it's another distraction, like so many of these things that have been orchestrated by nefarious sources. And why am I making such a point about this, and I have talked about this before on the channel, is because actually all of this that we think is vital and important that we know about is actually taking us away from the abilities that we have for our own lives, taking us away from our families, for example, and spending more time with those, but also taking us away from being creative people ourselves. The amazing thing that we have is the ability to create, to dream our own lives, to create stories, to think about ways of getting out of the humdrum of the world that the working system, for example, puts us in. All the time we're looking outside of the goldfish bowl at everybody else and all their issues and problems and getting worried or put into fear. We're not really thinking about ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and the importance of embracing just being alive. We are the most creative beings there ever was. Everything we do is creative, but all the time we allow other people to give us that creativity, to distract us with their thoughts and their ideas, that we forget that we have that power to concentrate on ourselves and to create for ourselves and manifest a much more interesting life, keeping our vibrations high rather than worrying about fictional characters or what the mainstream narrative is talking about. And this is absolutely vital. by not having a television, by not reading the newspaper, and actually looking at very few YouTube channels these days, I feel so much happier. I feel so much more confident. I feel a lot more assertive. I'm making my own studies about what is law and what is lawful. I'm pushing back against those letters that are trying to bully me into paying for things which really don't concern me. And I feel much more empowered because I'm listening to my own mind, I'm listening to my own self, and I'm spending more time with my loved ones. Of course, I'm trying to keep up with all the emails that all these lovely viewers send me, which is quite difficult, but I'm spending more time being alive and thriving and getting a sense of what life is about, instead of worrying all the time about all these other things that I have absolutely no power to influence whatsoever, and get worried about and lower myself down, constantly distracted on the phone, taking my attention away from the here and now, and actually breathing, looking at the sunrise, walking in the countryside, realizing that I actually don't need very much in this life to thrive and be happy. So it does surprise me when people come up to me and they say, but Richard, I get all my news from you. And I think to myself, I don't know where that news is coming from, because I'm not watching all that distraction and bringing it down to you. But I'm really trying to focus on those things which are important, those things which make us much happier and more aware of the fact that we are alive and that we're thriving.